Alara Brooks never thought silence could sound so loud. She stood in the kitchen of the small blue house she shared with her husband, Jonah Brooks, staring at her phone while the hum of the refrigerator filled the air like a nervous whisper. The screen glowed in her hand, lighting up her tired face. A message sat open, one she wasn't meant to see. "I miss you already. I wish you were here instead of her." Alara's fingers trembled as she scrolled, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. "This isn't real," she whispered to herself, her voice cracking. The smell of burnt toast lingered in the air, forgotten on the counter. She dropped the phone and pressed her hands against her face. Jonah had always been gentle, always careful with his words. He used to leave her notes on the mirror that said things like, "You are my calm in every storm." But now there were these messages, sent to a name she didn't recognize. Mara. Alara leaned against the counter and slid down until she was sitting on the cold kitchen floor. "Who is she?" she asked the empty room. Her chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a rope around her heart and pulled. She didn't hear Jonah's car pull into the driveway. She didn't hear the front door open. It wasn't until he said her name that she looked up. "Alara?" Jonah's voice was soft, confused. She stood slowly, holding the phone out to him like evidence in a trial. "You tell me," she said. "Who is Mara?" Jonah froze. His eyes flicked from Alara's face to the phone in her hand, and for a moment, he didn't speak at all. The silence stretched between them like a fragile thread ready to snap. "You weren't supposed to see that," he finally said, his voice low. Alara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's your defense? Not, 'I'm sorry'? Not, 'I love you'?" She stepped closer, her eyes burning. "Tell me the truth, Jonah. Are you having an affair?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small living room. "It's not what you think," he muttered. "That's what everyone says when it's exactly what it looks like," Alara shot back. He stopped and looked at her, really looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Mara isn't just someone I'm seeing," he said slowly. "She's complicated." Alara crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. "You don't get to use big words to hide small, ugly truths," she said. "Is she the reason you've been coming home late? The reason you don't look me in the eyes anymore?" Jonah swallowed hard. "She's in the hospital," he said suddenly. Alara blinked. "What?" "There was an accident," he continued. "A car crash. She's hurt. I just found out this morning." The anger in Alara's chest mixed with something colder, something darker. "So your mistress is lying in a hospital bed, and I'm standing here like a fool," she said. Jonah flinched. "Don't call her that." Alara's lips trembled. "Then tell me what she is." That night, Alara couldn't sleep. The bed felt too big, too empty. Even with Jonah lying on the far edge, his back turned to her. Her thoughts raced like cars on a highway with no brakes. Mara, hospital, accident. The words repeated in her head. Just before dawn, she sat up and whispered, "I need to see her." Jonah turned, startled. "What?" "I need to look at the woman who almost took my life apart," Alara said quietly. Jonah shook his head. "That's not a good idea." Alara swung her legs over the side of the bed. "Neither is lying to your wife, but here we are." By mid-morning, she stood outside Greystone Medical Center, staring up at the tall glass building. Her hands were shaking, but she pushed the doors open anyway. The smell of antiseptic hit her as soon as she stepped inside. She walked up to the front desk and forced a calm smile. "I'm here to see Mara," she said. The nurse looked at her screen. Room 412. The elevator ride felt like it took a lifetime. When the doors opened, Alara walked down the quiet hallway, her footsteps echoing. She stopped in front of the room and hesitated. "This is it," she whispered. She opened the door slowly, expecting to see a glamorous woman, someone beautiful and confident, someone who knew exactly what she was doing. But what she saw made her breath catch in her throat. The woman in the bed didn't look like a rival. She looked small, fragile. Tubes ran from her arms, and a soft beeping sound came from a machine beside her. Her hair was messy, her face pale, and her eyes, when they opened, were filled with confusion and fear. "Hello," the woman whispered. Alara swallowed. "Mara?" The woman frowned. No, she said slowly. My name is Liana. Alara felt the room tilt. What do you mean? Liana shifted, wincing. They said someone might come looking for me, she murmured. But I don't know anyone named Jonah. Alara's heart pounded. Then why are his messages on your phone? Liana looked away. Because someone asked me to send them, she admitted. A man named Victor. Alara's hands curled into fists. Who is Victor? Liana hesitated. He said he needed help. Said he was trying to protect someone. I didn't understand it at first. Alara took a step closer to the bed. Protect who? Liana's voice dropped to a whisper. You. The word hung in the air between them. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. Protect me from what? Liana closed her eyes. From a lie that's been building for years. Alara pulled a chair up beside the bed and sat down slowly, her legs feeling weak. You're going to explain everything, she said. Start from the beginning. Liana nodded. Victor is Jonah's brother, she said. Alara's breath caught. Jonah told me he was an only child. Liana gave a sad smile. That's the first lie. She took a shaky breath. Victor came to me because he knew Jonah was hiding something big. He didn't know how to reach you without making Jonah suspicious, so he used me as a bridge. Alara stared at the floor. So the messages, the late nights, all of it was a setup? Liana nodded. Victor wanted you to start questioning things. He wanted you to dig. Alara laughed bitterly. Congratulations. It worked. She looked back at Liana. And the accident? Liana's eyes filled with tears. That part was real. Someone ran a red light. But before I blacked out, I saw Jonah's car across the street. Watching. Alara's heart dropped into her stomach. Watching what? Liana whispered. Watching me bleed. Alara felt like the hospital room was closing in on her. The steady beep of the machine beside Liana's bed sounded louder now, almost like a ticking clock counting down something terrible. That doesn't make sense, Alara said, standing up and pacing the small space. Jonah wouldn't just stand there. He wouldn't watch someone get hurt. Liana's eyes followed her. I thought the same thing at first, she replied softly. But Victor showed me things. Photos. Messages. Times and places where Jonah had been watching people, not helping them. Alara stopped and pressed her hand against the wall. Why? She whispered. Liana shook her head. Victor thinks Jonah is afraid. Afraid of what happens when the truth comes out. Alara laughed weakly. The truth about what? Liana hesitated, then said, about who Jonah really is. Alara felt a strange chill, like she had opened a door to a room in her own house she had never known existed. When Alara left the hospital, the sky was dark with heavy clouds, and the air smelled like rain. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. Her phone buzzed. Where are you? Jonah had texted. She didn't reply. Instead, she called the one number Liana had given her. Victor answered on the second ring. You went to see her, he said. Alara swallowed. You used me, she replied. You used my marriage like a game. Victor's voice was tired. I used a lie to uncover a bigger one. Alara closed her eyes. Tell me everything. Right now. There was a pause. Meet me at the old train station, Victor said. Tonight. Alara started the car, her heart pounding. She didn't know what scared her more. The idea of meeting Jonah when she got home, or the idea of finally hearing the truth. The old train station was almost empty, lit by flickering yellow lights that cast long shadows on the cracked concrete. Victor stood near a bench, his hands in his pockets. He looked like Jonah, but older, heavier, like life had pressed down on him harder. You look just like him, Alara said as she approached. Victor gave a sad smile. That's how I know how he thinks. They sat down. Jonah wasn't always the man you married, Victor began. When we were younger, he liked control. He liked knowing things before others did. Watching how people moved, how they lied, how they broke. Alara shook her head. That's not my Jonah. Victor leaned forward. That's the Jonah I grew up with. He pulled out his phone and showed her a series of photos. Jonah in parking lots. Jonah across the street from offices. Jonah outside the hospital the night of Liana's accident. Alara's hands trembled. Why? She asked again. Victor's voice dropped. Because he's been hiding something about your past. Alara felt her stomach twist. My past, she repeated. Victor nodded. You were adopted, he said gently. You told Jonah that, right? Alara nodded slowly. My birth mother left me at a church. That's all I know. Victor took a deep breath. Jonah found out who she was. And what happened to her? Alara stood up. What happened? Victor hesitated. She disappeared. Years ago. The last person seen with her was someone connected to Jonah. Alara's legs felt weak. Are you saying my husband had something to do with my mother vanishing? Victor shook his head. I'm saying he knows more than he's telling you. Alara felt tears burn her eyes. Then why marry me? Victor looked away. Maybe he wanted to keep you close. Maybe he wanted to protect you. Or maybe he wanted to control the story. Alara's heart ached with a deep, heavy pain she had never known before. When Alara got home, Jonah was sitting on the couch, his hands clasped together. He looked up when she walked in. Where were you? He asked. Alara dropped her keys on the table. At the hospital. Then with your brother. Jonah stood up fast. You met Victor? His face changed, fear flashing across it. So you do know how to feel afraid, Alara said quietly. Jonah ran a hand over his face. I never wanted you dragged into this. Alara stepped closer. Then stop lying and start talking. Jonah's shoulders slumped. I found your birth mother years ago, he admitted. She was in trouble. Bad people. Dangerous people. Alara's voice shook. And you just let her disappear? Jonah's eyes filled with tears. I tried to help her. She didn't want help. She told me to stay away from you. Alara whispered. Why? Jonah looked at her. Because she said the truth would break you. Alara felt like she couldn't breathe. What truth? She demanded. Jonah sat down slowly. Your mother wasn't running from bad people, he said. She was running from me. Alara stared at him. That doesn't make sense. Jonah's voice trembled. She thought I was watching her. Following her. She thought I wanted to take you away from her, even though she had already given you up. Alara shook her head. Were you? Jonah whispered. I didn't know why I couldn't stop. Alara took a step back. So you married me because you felt guilty? Jonah looked up at her, tears falling. I married you because I loved you. But I stayed because I was afraid of what I had become. Alara wrapped her arms around herself, feeling colder than she ever had in her own home. The next morning, Alara went back to the hospital. Liana looked stronger, sitting up in bed. You found Victor, she said. Alara nodded. And Jonah told me part of the truth. Liana frowned. Only part. Alara leaned closer. What aren't they telling me? Liana hesitated. Victor believes your mother left something behind. A letter. A record. Something that explains why she was so afraid. Alara's heart raced. Where is it? Liana whispered. In the old house by the river. The one she used to live in before she vanished. Alara stood up. Then that's where I'm going. The house by the river was small and worn, surrounded by tall grass and quiet water. Alara pushed the door open, dust filling the air. She walked slowly, her footsteps echoing. In the bedroom, she found a loose floorboard. Under it was a small box. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age. Her hands shook as she opened it. Alara, if you ever find this, know that I loved you more than my own life. I gave you up because I believed someone was watching me, waiting to take you. I don't know if it was real or fear, but I couldn't live like that. If Jonah Brooks ever comes near you, be careful. Alara sank to the floor, tears falling onto the paper. When Alara returned home, Jonah was waiting. She held up the letter. She warned me about you, she said. Jonah closed his eyes. I know. Alara's voice broke. Why didn't you leave me alone? Jonah stepped forward. Because when I met you, you weren't just her daughter. You were you. Kind. Warm. Alive. Alara whispered. And you still chose to lie. Jonah nodded. I was afraid of losing you. Alara shook her head. You already did. Alara packed a bag that night. Jonah stood in the doorway, watching. Where will you go? He asked. Alara didn't look at him. Somewhere I can't hear my own thoughts. Jonah's voice cracked. Can I fix this? Alara paused. You can start by fixing yourself. She walked past him, leaving a house that once felt like safety. Weeks later, Alara sat in a small cafe by the sea. The sound of waves calmed her. Victor called. Jonah's getting help, he said. Alara nodded. I hope he finds peace. Victor hesitated. And you? Alara smiled softly. I'm learning how to live without fear. Liana sent a message from hospital. I'm walking again. Thank you for believing me. Alara replied. Thank you for telling me the truth. She realized how strange it was that a woman she once thought was her enemy had become her ally. One evening, Alara stood by the river near the old house. She spoke softly into the wind. I found your letter, Mom. I'm okay. The water moved gently, like it was listening. Jonas sent one final message. I will always love you. I will always be sorry. Alara read it, then placed her phone face down. Some stories, she realized, didn't need replies. Alara walked forward into her new life, carrying pain, truth, and strength together in her heart. She wasn't the woman who had once sat on a kitchen floor holding a stranger's name on a phone screen. She was someone who had faced fear, followed it to its darkest corners, and come back with her own light. And for the first time in a long while, the silence around her didn't feel loud. It felt peaceful. Alara thought peace would feel like a sudden moment, like a door slamming shut on the past, but instead it arrived slowly, in small and unexpected ways. One morning, as sunlight spilled across the wooden floor of her tiny seaside apartment, she realized she had slept through the night without dreaming of Jonah, without hearing the echo of hospital machines or Victor's heavy voice in her head. She sat up in bed and laughed softly at herself. Look at you, she whispered, brushing her hair back. You're still here. Later that day, she walked into a small bookstore near the harbor, the bell above the door chiming gently. An older woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. Looking for something special? She asked. Alara hesitated, then said, I think I'm looking for something new. The woman nodded like she understood more than Alara had said. Alara wandered through the shelves, running her fingers along book spines, feeling like she was touching different versions of herself that had never had the chance to exist before. When she left, she carried a thin journal under her arm, blank pages waiting for a story that finally belonged to her alone. That evening, Alara sat on her balcony, the sound of the ocean rising and falling like a slow breath. She opened the journal and stared at the first page for a long time. What do I even say? She asked the empty air. After a moment, she wrote one simple sentence. My name is Alara, and this is where I begin again. The words felt small, but they carried a quiet strength. Her phone buzzed, and for a second her heart jumped, old habits refusing to fade easily. It was Liana. I'm being discharged tomorrow, the message read. Would you like to meet? Alara smiled and typed back, yes. I'd like that. When they met the next day, at a cafe near the hospital, Liana walked slowly, still careful with each step. They sat across from each other, two women who had once been pulled into the same storm from different sides. I used to think you were my enemy, Alara admitted, stirring her tea. Liana laughed softly. I thought you were someone I was hurting, and I didn't even know how. Alara looked up. Maybe we were both just trying to survive something we didn't understand. Liana raised her cup. To surviving, she said. Alara clinked her cup against it. To surviving. A few days later, Victor called again. His voice sounded lighter than before, like a weight had finally been set down. Jonah asked about you, he said carefully. Alara closed her eyes for a moment. What did you tell him? Victor replied, that you're finding your way. Alara nodded, even though he couldn't see her. That's enough, she said. Victor hesitated. You don't owe him forgiveness, he added, but you deserve peace. Alara leaned against the railing of her balcony, watching seagulls glide across the sky. I used to think peace meant forgetting, she said. Now I think it means remembering without breaking. Victor was quiet for a moment. You're stronger than you know, he said. After the call ended, Alara opened her journal and wrote about the woman she used to be, the one who believed love meant holding on no matter how much it hurt. She wrote about the woman she was becoming, the one who believed love also meant knowing when to let go. The words came faster this time, filling page after page like a river finally finding its path. One afternoon, while walking along the beach, Alara met a young girl building a crooked sandcastle near the water's edge. The girl looked up and frowned at the waves. They keep knocking it down, she said. Alara crouched beside her. Maybe the waves just want to be part of it, she suggested. The girl thought about this, then smiled. Then I'll make it bigger. Alara laughed, helping her pack wet sand into tall, uneven towers. As the tide crept closer, Alara felt something inside her soften. She realized how much of her life had been spent trying to protect what she built, afraid of anything that might wash it away. But here, in this small moment, she saw that even things that fall can be built again, sometimes stronger, sometimes different, but still beautiful. When the girl's mother called her name, the child waved. Bye, she said. Alara waved back, her throat tight with a feeling that was close to hope. That night, Alara received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was familiar. It was from Jonah. She held the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside, he had written about therapy, about learning where his need to watch and control had come from, about how afraid he had always been of losing people before they chose to leave. I don't ask for you to come back, the letter read. I only ask that you live freely, even if that freedom doesn't include me. Alara folded the letter carefully. She didn't cry this time. Instead, she whispered, I hope you find the peace you couldn't give me. She placed the letter in her journal, not as a wound, but as a chapter that had finally reached its last page. Months later, Alara stood on a small stage in the back of the bookstore by the harbor, her hands shaking as she read from her journal. A few people sat in folding chairs, listening closely. This story, she said, her voice steadying, is about losing what you thought was your life and finding out it was only the beginning. When she finished, the room was quiet for a moment, then filled with soft applause. Alara smiled, a real, full smile that reached her eyes. As she stepped outside, the evening sky glowed with shades of gold and purple. She took a deep breath and felt the world open around her, wide and uncertain and full of possibility. Alara Brooks walked forward, not as someone running from the past, but as someone carrying it gently, like a book she had finally learned how to close, and, when she was ready, how to open again.